Good day, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us today for the 6th Annual Sanford Springvale Fallen Veterans Ceremony. With the closing of our schools because of the coronavirus pandemic, we were forced with a choice of not moving forward with the ceremony this year or do a video presentation in its place. The staff and students felt that this decision was a no-brainer and all agreed to move forward with the video ceremony. The theme for this year's ceremony is honoring of the 10 men from our town that were lost in France during World War II. This past October, 4 staff members who have been involved with the Fallen Veterans Project from its beginning traveled to Normandy, France with family members of Harley Knox, who was lost at St. Lo, along with Leon Tangway, a World War II Normandy veteran. There is another difference with today's ceremony from the previous ceremonies in that we are featuring a video of a living World War II veteran from Sanford, Leon Tangway. He returned to Normandy for the first time after 75 years. He took part in the Normandy campaign, was captured south of St. Lo, and spent the rest of the war in a POW camp. His decision to come back to Normandy with us was his way to pay his deepest respects to those men who did not come home. Our second featured video is the following of Harley Knox's footsteps from his arrival on Omaha Beach on June 25th to his last battle on July 19th, 1944. With the help of after-action reports from the 116th Infantry 29th Division, we were able to trace Harley's movements through the hedgerows to St. Lo. St. Lo was a significant junction for roads and rail lines that supported the German defenses. On behalf of the students and staff that have been involved in this year's ceremony, we present to you the 6th Annual Sanford Springvale Veterans Ceremony in honoring those who were lost from Sanford during World War II.
Would you now please stand and join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and then please stay standing and join us in the National Anthem.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Private Roger Boulat, June 6, 1944, Omaha Beach, age 20 years old, engaged to be married. Private Paul Duquette, June 16, 1944, Montberg, Normandy, 20 years old, single. Private Harley Knox, July 19th, 1944, St. Lo, France, 31 years old, married. Private Raymond Hubert, September 2nd, 1944, Brest, France, 22 years old, married. Private Robert Willett, September 9th, 1944, Brie, France, 25 years old, single. Lieutenant Ralph Hansen, September 16th, 1944, Loire, France, 26 years old, married. Robert Gallant, December 4th, 1944, Puberg, France, 23 years old, engaged to be married. Lieutenant Donald Baker, December 25th, 1944, English Channel, 29 years old, married with 2 children. Staff Sergeant Paul Lesperance, December 25th, 1944, English Channel, 36 years old, married. Romeo Monso, February 2nd, 1944, Haguenau, France, 21 years old, married with 1 child. We have been honored over the years to have Senator King send messages to us of support for the fallen veterans ceremonies. This year is no different. Senator King.
It's an honor for me to join the Fallen Veterans Program at Sanford today. This is a great program, and before I go any further, I want to thank Carol Baker-Rue for all the work that she's done over the years. I understand she's retiring. Carol, I don't know what we're going to do without you, but I just want to thank you for the tremendous contribution that you've made to your community and to Maine in working so hard to make this happen every year. This is a great moment in the state. I've been engaged with you before, and I'm really delighted to be able to do that. I know that Joe Darwin is going to be involved coming on, and it just means so much, and it means so much to the young people. And it's important to keep the memories alive of what those fallen veterans have done, the sacrifice they made for us, and how we've benefited by that sacrifice and the work that they put in on our behalf. And it's especially great this year to recognize the World War II veterans, and particularly those that were involved in D-Day. I looked down the list and noticed, let's see, Roger Brulé, Paul Duquette, Harley Knox, all lost their lives at D-Day. And that was the act of courage that those men and thousands of others like them exhibited that day to begin the liberation of Europe from tyranny was unbelievable. I was fortunate enough just about this time last year to go to Normandy, to stand at Omaha Beach and see that scene and meet some of the veterans who were there that day, including a veteran named Charles Shea from the Penobscot Nation, grew up on Indian Island, and he was a medic in the water at 8 o'clock in the morning on D-Day, and he was there. And it was so inspiring to meet him and have a chance to talk to him. But what struck me was the bravery of the people that came ashore that day, because Omaha Beach is not like Reed State Park. Omaha Beach isn't a gradual beach that goes up and then there's a long gradual incline as you go up. There are cliffs at the edge of the beach. There are high bluffs. And it was a very, very rough place to come ashore under enemy fire. and to get up those cliffs and to secure that area. So the people that came ashore out of those boats and looked up and saw the ramparts in front of them with the snipers' nests and the machine guns, to have kept going that morning with the idea of wrestling tyranny to the ground and fighting their way through France into Germany is just sort of breathtaking. On your list are 7 others who lost their lives that year, that day, or in that area. And it just means so much to be able to honor them and remember them on a day like this. So thanks to Carol and Joe, to all the students that worked on this, but especially to those whose names we recognize today. Thank you for what you've done for your community, for the Sanford, Springvale area, for Maine, and for the United States of America. We love what you've done. We love what you do. And we express our undying thanks.
The March of the Purple Heart tells the story of Paul E. Duquette, who went into battle on D-Day, one of the most horrific days in history. Paul Duquette was a private first class 8th Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry Division in the U.S. Army during World War II. My song begins with a march telling the story of going into the Army. I then used a simple marching drum beat symbolizing marching off into the war, and then escalating into the fray. The song ends with a loud bang symbolizing the end of Duquette's service to this country. The song closes out with a melancholy sound of instruments weaving in and out of each other, sad that he is gone. The end of the piece picks up a little, recognizing this man's sacrifice to our country to help save us all. This is the March of the Purple Heart in memory of Paul E. Duquette.
Corporal Leon Tanguay's trip back to France after 75 years started on the evening of October 8, 2019, while boarding an Air France flight out of Logan in Boston. There was absolutely no hesitation in his decision to return and follow the route through Normandy from Omaha Beach to Saint-Siève, the village where he was captured on August 5, 1944. We arrived on Wednesday, October 9th in Paris and promptly got into our rental cars for a 3.5-hour drive to Bayeux, Normandy. Bayeux was to be our home for a week, and you couldn't ask for a more charming village for our base of operations. It became very apparent to all of us that Leon, wearing his World War II baseball cap, was to be the center of attention no matter where we would go. It started when we went out for supper that first evening and did not stop until we got back to Maine. On Thursday, October 10th, we had planned a very busy day. Our first stop was at a large German military cemetery at La Combe, just south of Pointe du Hoc. Leon spoke to a group of French high school students at the cemetery. What struck me was Leon's first response to a question where he said he holds no resentment to the German soldiers buried here. They were doing what they were told, just like we were.
I'm really saddened by all this. I'm sorry for what happened to all your kids. And I hope that we learn from that it never happens again.
Why do we commemorate German soldiers?
Well, they're human beings just like we are. You know? So that's not their fault.
We moved on to Pointe du Hoc, where the 2nd Ranger Battalion scaled the cliffs. From Pointe du Hoc, we visited a small farm that produced Calvados from distilled apples. Any veteran of the Normandy campaign would have a story or two about Calvados, including Leon. Before our last stop of the day, we had lunch at Verville-sur-Mer. This is where the 116th Infantry, 29th Division landed along with half of the 2nd Ranger Battalion. We lost Roger Boulat from Sanford on this section of beach on D-Day. We ended our day at the American Cemetery after visiting the grounds and paying our respects to 3 Sanford men buried there, Roger Boulat, Paul Duquette, and Raymond Hubert. We made our way to the flagpole where Leon was a guest of honor for the retreat ceremony. On Friday, we visited Utah Beach. Leon was given a medal and certificate at a presentation in the Utah Beach Museum. A very special treat for my wife, Debbie, and me was to take a picture of her on the section of Utah Beach where her father dropped troops off from his Higgins boat during the first wave on D-Day. From Utah Beach, we moved on to Sainte-Mère-Église. This is the town that the 82nd Airborne Division landed in and around during the night before H hour. The Airborne Museum is a must-see if you're in that area. On Saturday, we followed Leon's route to the site of his first combat experience. But first, here's a little background on Leon. He was born on April 24th, 1925 in Sanford, the 10th child of 12. He was educated in Sanford schools and in his senior year dropped out to support his family. On March 4th, 1943, at 19 years old, he was drafted and shipped off to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. After 7 months of training at several different bases, he left Boston on October 8th, 1943, and landed in England on October 18th. He was assigned to the 112th Infantry, Company C, 1st Battalion, 28th Division. Leon landed on Omaha Beach on July 25th, 1944. St. Lo fell on July 19th, and a strong push was needed south of St. Lo to break out of Normandy. The 28th Division, with no combat experience, was put into the front line on July 27th, southwest of St. Lo. On August 1st, the 112th had their first test in combat at Hill 210, just north of Percy. Against a very strong German resistance, the 112th proved themselves in combat that day. From August 1st to August 5th, the 112th Infantry gained about 10 miles to the outskirts of St. Sèvres. On the morning of August 5th, along the train tracks just to the northeast of St. Siev, Leon was sent by the company commander to see what was on the other side of the hedgerow down from them. He was captured by SS troops on his father's birthday. His story as a POW is a standalone story, and it will be told at another time. Leon was liberated on April 20th, 1945. We had arranged months earlier to have Leon meet the mayor of St. Siev on Saturday. On an earlier trip to St. Siev, my brother and I were very fortunate to make contact with an author and historian, André LaRose. He arranged the visit with the mayor and gave us a guided tour of the area. He also brought us as near as possible to the location where Leon was captured. We ended our visit with a very enjoyable dinner at a restaurant in Veldu with our guest, Andre. Everyone in our group would acknowledge this was not only a very special day for Leon and his daughter Mim, but it was also an honor to witness this day unfold for him.
Off to Battle We Go by Jacob Greco and Sarah Bernard. We were looking through the list of veterans, and one in particular caught our eyes, Roger G. Brulat. When we saw his information, it got us thinking and made us wonder how we could tell his story. We wanted our song to show some stages in his life. For example, we wanted the beginning to be slow to start off the song and get it rolling. After that, we wanted it to change into some type of military march. This is to show him going through basic training. The next section is tense and shows high stress. This is to show him getting ready for war. We then thought of his time on the Higgins boat. Our song becomes loud and stressful because he doesn't know what's about to happen when the Higgins boat lands. Our ending at first stops suddenly to show his death. Roger Brulat's unit was one of the first casualties. He was wounded seconds after stepping off his Higgins boat. After a brief pause, you will hear taps, a final goodbye to Roger Brulat and his fellow soldiers. Tribute to Donald Baker by Jack Cullen, Trevor Clegg, and Simon Olapollo. We were inspired to write this song after reading about how Donald Baker's boat sank. We read just how horrific this incident was and how he rescued so many people, so we wanted to create a tribute to Donald Baker. We composed a song depicting before, during, and after the boat sinking. We also added siren sounds to emphasize how scary this sinking was. It showed us that these people were brave.
Very pleased tonight to introduce our guest speaker, Bonnie Pothier. She's the Senate aide to Senator King, and she has attended every one of our fallen veterans ceremony over the years. She is a true supporter of the veterans in Maine, and I'm proud to introduce her and her video presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Bonita Pothier. I work with U.S. Senator Angus King. Mr. Dworin asked me if I would be kind enough to share some thoughts with you during your ceremony today. It's an honor to do so. I first, however, would like to start by thanking Carol Baker-Rue. Carol, your extraordinary leadership and dedication to the Sanford School District, and in particular, to your vision and commitment in developing this ceremony every year is extraordinary. I understand that you and Sarah Nason have collaborated in this effort, making it the memorable experience it is every single year. I have to tell you, for me, very profound, very moving, something that I look forward to and appreciate. It is wonderful to have this kind of an effort. You have, the two of you, guided the students to do the research in each of the wars that you have studied. You've uncovered the history of Sanford's heroes who perished. You've created banners to highlight each of them. And you have the students of the band play songs from the era and write their own pieces honoring these heroes. Just really something to see and to be a part of. Carol, I also heard that you are retiring this year. May you enjoy many years of retirement in very good health and in peace. Both Senator King and I wish you well and Godspeed. So, this year, you have studied and worked on World War II. This is the 75th anniversary of both VE Day, Victory in Europe, May 8th, as well as the end of World War II, the end of the year. The largest and most devastating war in history, World War II, saw work and effort and fighting by over 16 million American men and women. Some served in Europe, the Atlantic Front, some in Asia, the Pacific Front. Of those 16 million, more than 400,000 perished. I recently read a quote from a survivor of that conflict. He said, "Heroes are the ones who died. Those of us who came back, we were just the lucky ones." Think about that when you consider those 400,000 deaths. Now you know the stories of some of your own hometown heroes. Another veteran recently said to me, "One thing we learned, never give up, never despair." We are all right now facing a really tough time. It's very chaotic with this COVID-19 pandemic. But if we think this is tough, if we think our lives have been upended, think of what those who served in World War II experienced. My father, who was born in Sanford, fought in World War II. He was a paratrooper, and he was a lucky one. He came home. My dad never talked about his experiences during World War II, at least not while I was a young girl. He never really talked about it till almost 50 years after the end of the war. My feelings and my understanding of World War II were shaped by waking up in the middle of the night to Dad's screams, his terror, his fear, his anger. I could hear it. It would scare me. It would wake me up. I would jump out of bed. Mom would run over. "It's okay. Dad's having a bad nightmare. It's the war." I only knew growing up that he had fought in the Battle of the Bulge, the most horrific battle of the war. This year, you have had an opportunity to learn the history of several Sanford men who never came home. You've learned the stories of so many who have fought. By holding this event, you not only take the time to remember, but you also take the time to honor them for their sacrifice. That is so important. It is so critically important, not just for them, but for ourselves, for all of us, for you, to understand how that event shaped our lives. Remember the quote that they, all of them who fought, those who came home, those who didn't, they taught us something very valuable. Never give up, never despair. To all of you, I wish you Godspeed and good health as we navigate our way through this pandemic. Life will go on, and we will learn from this. Never give up, never despair. Thank you.
Change by Hannah Patterson. We don't always know about all of the people affected by the war. We always hear about the brave soldiers, and we've learned about the Holocaust. But what about the people whose normal, everyday life was torn apart, and they could only sit by and watch? I read an article about a woman. She had been a very little girl who lived in France during the war. She had an older sister as well. And when they interviewed her, she told of the things that they experienced, how they felt, and the things her sister would tell her. The most interesting thing about the interview is that when they had moved to America, they never spoke French again. However, the war was so traumatizing, she could only do the interview in French. This song is my way of showing that the children in France were some of the bravest people at the time and deserve to be acknowledged as well.
I know it's hard to push through the pain. I know it's difficult to make it through your day. I know it's hard to imagine I were here, but I know things will change. You're trying to make it through your day with nothing you can say that'll change anything. You're tired of sitting around waiting for something that you can bring to this war that'll change the way that things are. To this war that'll change the way that things are. I know it's hard to push through the pain. I know it's difficult to make it through your day. I know it's hard to imagine why we're here, but I know things will change. You sit inside all day too terrified to even look outside your window. You wonder how the people in the world could even stoop so low as to kill all the innocent people out there, has to kill all the innocent people out there. I know it's hard to push through the pain. I know it's difficult to make it through your day. I know it's hard to imagine why we're here, but I know things will change. And I know it's hard that any moment right now your family might not make it. And I know it's hard to see how that we get there. You try to tell yourself that there was nothing you could have done, but you still feel bad every time that we are going wrong. But when it is hard to push through the pain, when it is difficult to make it through your day, when it is hard to imagine why we're here, just know that things will change. It won't always be hard to push through the pain. It won't always be difficult to make it through your day. It won't always be hard to imagine why we're here, 'cause I know, 'cause you know, 'cause we know things will change.
I got to know Harley Knox a little over 7 years ago when we started doing research on the men from Sanford who were lost in World War II. My first impression, after finding a picture of him in uniform, was a person who was soft-spoken and kind. That impression was confirmed during conversations with his niece, Julie Knox Murray. Julie and her brother, Leon, with their spouses, traveled with us to France in October 2020. Harley was born on October 15, 1912, in Shapley. He attended local schools and graduated from Sanford High School in 1931. He was employed in a local shoe shop. On December 26, 1935, he married his sweetheart, Sarah Marston. According to Julie, he enjoyed fishing and hunting with his father and brother, Ralph. When not working, he enjoyed family gatherings at his and his parents' camps on Mousom Lake. On October 13, 1943, he enlisted in the Army, feeling that it was his duty to serve his country. He left home on November 3rd for active duty. I'm assuming that he spent the next 3 to 4 months in training in the States before shipping out to England sometimes in January or February of 1944. The only letter surviving from Harley is dated May 22nd, written to his brother in England. In researching the APO address on that envelope, Harley was at a troop replacement site for the 116th Infantry, 29th Division. According to after-action reports for the 116th Infantry, we know that Harley arrived on Omaha Beach on June 25th. He was assigned to the 116th Infantry, Company L, 3rd Battalion, 29th Division. The division was composed of the 115th, 116th, and the 117th Infantries. Each infantry unit was composed of 3 battalions. Each battalion consisted of 3 companies along with supporting units. During World War II, a battalion consisted of 1,000 men when at full strength. St. Lo is 19 miles away by air from Omaha Beach. The American objective was to secure St. Lo in 2 days after landing on D-Day. However, St. Lo fell on July 19th. It is surprising that the Allied armies never trained for Normandy's unique physical barriers. The Battle of the Hedgerows is an appropriate title for the Battle of Normandy. Harley's introduction to hedgerow warfare was immediate after arrival at Comblières. Operation Cobra, the drive to push the Germans out of Normandy, was at a stalemate, and the frustration level at the 1st Army headquarters was wearing thin. The drive to St. Lo was reset, and headquarters wanted results. The 29th Infantry's order was to move south to St. Lo and enter the city from the east. Advancing out of Comblières through Brickaville, St. Marcouf, Cauvin, St. Andre, they arrived outside Martinville on July 15th, a driving distance of 14 miles. As they advanced closer to St. Lo, fighting was more intense against well-positioned German defenses, and casualties mounted for the 116th. Harley's 3rd Battalion was down to under 400 men. The capture of Martinville was critical for the entry into St. Lo and also to rescue the 2nd Battalion. The 2nd Battalion got caught behind the German lines with no means of communication. The 3rd Battalion was ordered to attack early morning on the 16th. The battalion commander, Major Howie, ordered his men to attack in the morning fog, using only their bayonets and hand grenades. a very bold move that was very successful. Harley was involved in this attack along with another Sanford man, Philip Roy, who was also in Harley's company. The 3rd Battalion was able to form a front line at St. Madeleine, 2 miles south of Martinville, on the 17th. The battle line stretched across a major road to Paris, blocking a German retreat. Harley was wounded on the 18th and died of wounds on the 19th. The 116th was to lead the advance into St. Lo on the 19th. However, they were so undermanned, they were put into reserve. St. Lo fell on the 19th, 43 days after D-Day. Using a current map of St. Lo and overlaying a July 18th battle map along with historic markers at St. Madeleine, we were able to have Julie and Leon have their picture taken at a spot that is within 200 yards from where their uncle was wounded. We left St. Lo to visit the location of the temporary U.S. cemetery to the west at Marigny, where Harley laid to rest. In 1946, the families who had lost loved ones during the war had the option to have their remains returned home. Harley's wife, Sarah, and his parents wanted him home. His remains arrived by train to North Berwick on Friday, September 10th, 1948, at 7:07 p.m. He was met by his family and members of the American Legion Thomas Cole Post. A funeral service was held at Notre Dame Church on Saturday, and a military burial was held following the service at Notre Dame Cemetery in Springvale. Traditionally, at the end of the Fallen Veterans Program, we present a flag to a family member who lost a loved one in the war that we were honoring that evening. Today, Julie Murray and Leon Knox will be accepting the flags on behalf of all the families that lost loved ones from Sanford in World War II.
The government of the United States presents to you, through the American Legion, these flags under which Harley Knox, our comrade, served. The government of the United States presents to you these flags through the American Legion under which Harley Knox, a comrade, served.